Well, hello and welcome. I'm glad that you're here with us today as we continue our chronological read through of the Bible. You know, rebellion is a cruel taskmaster. Actually, rebellion is sin, right? It's part of our sinful nature, and it often rears our ugly head even when it doesn't make any sense. That's kind of the way sin is. You find someone that has done something, an obvious sin, and you ask them why, and their response is, "Oh, I don't know." Well, that's actually probably quite true. Sin never makes sense. You might think that Israel had seen enough of the consequences of rebellion and that they'd be ready to settle in and wholeheartedly follow God's lead. But you know what? It's no more the case for them than it is for us. So a new rebellion arises among a group of Levites who desire the priesthood that was given by God exclusively to Aaron and his descendants. Korah is a great grandson of Levi. He leads this rebellion, and there's lots of other people involved in this with him. For starters, there's 250 of the chiefs of Israel, and many of the people follow as well. And they bring up 2 points. One point is that all of the Levites, should be able to serve as priests, not just Aaron's family. Their argument might sound a little familiar to us as we talk about things like the priesthood of all believers, but that wasn't the case for them. God had specifically selected Aaron and his descendants to serve as priests and none other. The second point that they brought up is a challenge to the leadership of Moses. Now remember, they've gone to the promised land, it's been spied out. The spies came back with a report that basically scared the people off, and they chose not to go in. Now they're going to wander for another 38 years in the wilderness. So some of the group accuses Moses of deceiving them, of failing to follow through on the promise of a land flowing with milk and honey, saying instead that they had been taken away from just such a land. Seemed like they maybe forgot about the slavery part of things. So they're also going to rebel against Moses and his leadership. Well, God delays his judgment on this until the next day. One of God's commands is that only the priests are able to bear incense in the tabernacle. So Moses tells them this: if they insist that they are to serve as priests, they should bring a censer with incense in the morning to the entrance of the tabernacle and stand there with Aaron before God, and God would show his will. But at the same time, Moses warns them that doing such a thing rebels against the instruction of God and is definitely going too far. Just the same, in the morning, Korah and the others show up with a large group of people in support. When the glory of the Lord appears, he determined to destroy them all. God determined that he was going to destroy all of the people of Israel, the entire nation. Moses and Aaron plead with God not to do that, so God relents. But the rebels, God insists, must still be punished. So Moses and Aaron urge the people to back away from the leaders of the rebellion. And suddenly the earth opens up and swallows them and their families and all their possessions. And fire comes out from the presence of the Lord at the tabernacle and consumes those who had approached the tabernacle with censers, except, of course, for Aaron, who was indeed supposed to be there with that. And yet, even after all of this, the people still do not believe that this is God's answer to their rebellion. They blame instead Moses and Aaron. Rather than seeing this as God's stamp of approval on Moses and Aaron, they see it as Moses and Aaron somehow wiping out the true people of God. So another plague ensues against the people and their hard hearts. Moses and Aaron plead to God for the people, and Aaron rushes out with his censer to stand between the living and the dead and stop the plague, which he does. Those who had just condemned his priesthood are now saved by it, as the high priest that was rejected goes out among the sinners who rejected him to save them. There should be something in that sentence that I just said that reminds you of Jesus as well. God then commands that there be one more sign to make clear to the people his intent about who it is to lead his people. So he commands the leader of each tribe, and Aaron as the leader of the tribe of Levi, to bring their staff to the tabernacle, to the tent of meeting. The staffs are then put into the tabernacle overnight by Moses, And the one that buds in the morning will be the one that God has chosen as their high priest. Of course, in the morning, it's Aaron's staff that buds. And not only does it bud, but there are flowers and there's ripe almonds on it. All of that is there overnight. God has spoken. And the hope is that the people will put this behind them and stop their grumbling. He even has Moses and Aaron keep that staff with the flowers and the buds and the ripe almonds as a reminder to everyone. But even here, the people miss the point. They overreact. Now, in fear, the people are afraid even to approach the tabernacle. You know, when the devil could no longer get them to sin by rebelling against God, the devil makes it so that they're so afraid of God that they won't come near to him even for worship. What a blessing it is that God is merciful and gracious with us in spite of the extremes that we jump to in our relationship with him. In fact, tomorrow we'll see that God responds to their overreaction by once again teaching them with his word. May God be with you, bless you. I pray that you're continuing to grow through your reading. I look forward to joining you again tomorrow.